Those record numbers from Victoria today have obviously spooked both the New South Wales and Queensland premiers. Not long after the numbers were circulated in the media prior to the press conference, New South Wales Premier Gladys Berejiklian was quick to schedule a press conference for this afternoon. Now, that's not Gladys's way. She's always been the early bird catching worms. And as expected, the New South Wales government did what they said yesterday was not needed. That is, to demand that all travellers from Victoria, New South Wales residents included, will have to quarantine for 14 days at their own expense. The Health Minister and Premier were both out together to explain why they'd done such a drastic backflip.
The results from Victoria have been extremely disturbing. What we're seeing is a very substantial increase again today. And as a result, we've had to review that situation and take further steps.
There's no doubt that the escalating situation in Victoria is top of mind for us.
What a difference a half a day makes. Total backflip. Meanwhile, the on-again, off-again Queensland-New South Wales border saga continues. What a yo-yo this has become. One day it's closed, next day it's open, next day it's sort of half open, and then the following day, as of this weekend, it's shut tight. Those border officials, the ones who have to shift those concrete barriers into place and then take them off the road when the border rules change, and then on Saturday back again, they will be doing their backs in by the weekend. What a joke. Let me try and get this straight and understand it for you. The Queensland Premier has closed the border again to all residents of New South Wales and the ACT because why?
We have seen people deliberately flouting the law to get entry into Queensland, and I will not risk the safety of Queenslanders and I will not risk our economy. We've seen that Victoria is not getting better and we're not going to wait for New South Wales to get worse.
So hold on, let me get this right. Queensland police cannot police their own borders. Queenslanders are telling porkies about where they've been, and New South Wales and ACT residents have to pay for that. You can't just look at their phone records on the spot and determine their whereabouts. Of course they could. We've got the technology. That's what is being done by New South Wales police frequently on the Victorian and New South Wales border. Come on, the technology is in front of us. Just use it. Those who don't like to have their phone checked, well, that's okay. You don't come in. And in worst-case scenarios, why couldn't Queensland just quarantine everyone, New South Wales residents too, at their own cost? That'd be much easier and better than telling absolutely everyone you're banned. And how does it make any sense to ban those from the ACT? There's not a single active case in the territory, not one. And according to COVID Live app, they haven't had one for almost a month. How's that for being a nervous Nelly? Now, the New South Wales community transmission rate, those unsourced infections, so those without connection to known clusters, are infinitesimal. As a matter of fact, in recent weeks, after a couple of days of contact tracing, almost all of those unsourced transmissions have been linked to clusters. There's no additional danger or any mass community transmission in Sydney, and definitely not in Greater New South Wales. The bush is almost totally without infection. So why punish all these people in New South Wales, and especially those who need to do business in Queensland, or see their family, or be part of special commemorations? But one part of what the Premier said there is quite telling. Have a look.
We're not going to wait for New South Wales to get worse.
In other words, we've all gone weak at the knees. The current data does not validate what we're doing, but it could. It could one day. Yeah, it could. The Queensland Chief Health Officer, she would be pushing this as well, because Jeanette Young doesn't have a scintilla of economic skin in this game. Her decisions are being made to do what she needs to do to eradicate the virus. That's all she cares about, eradicating the virus. And, of course, her lifelong job. She's got to keep that. But in political terms, the Premier of Queensland has seen the polling. The majority of older Queenslanders have been scared to death by the news coverage south of the border, especially from Victoria. And if you just keep the border shut, well, you can mask the economic catastrophe. That's really hard to see. and she can just win support for protecting Queenslanders from the disease. That's how easy it is. But what's the real toll? More livelihood smashed, assets sold, massive welfare dependence in Queensland, dreams gone down the drain, and fewer jobs available. A longer period to pay all this money off. If leadership in Queensland was smart enough, they could avoid the lies. They'd work out exactly how to police their own borders, by some of their own residents, I might add, without crashing tourism and crashing the rest of the state's economy. It is the Premier's job not to just do what her chief health bureaucrat says or do what will get her re-elected. It's her job to balance the real health threat with the real threat of economic collapse. Today, again, Annastacia Palaszczuk got that balance terribly wrong.